And then around the 35th session, I started to realize that I was seeing a reconnection of the communication link between my brain and my left arm, because before hyperbaric, I was unable, regardless of how much I tried, how much I strained or anything, get any movement on my left arm still. But after hyperbaric,
It's fantastic.
Yes. Yeah.
then when we got to the 40th session, Dr. Schmidt recommended that we take a 3-week break to allow my brain to do additional healing. And we decided to take advantage of that opportunity to go see our children who live about 2.5 hours away. And before hyperbaric, when we made that trip, although it's not that far, I was totally exhausted, mentally and physically exhausted, unable to really enjoy the time with my family. But after hyperbaric, we make that trip. I have the strength and the energy to get out of the car, walk into the house, visit with family and friends, participate in conversations, and even go out to eat, which, like I said before, I could not do. And when we returned to Jackson, Dr. Schmidt wanted us to come in and reassess the status and determine what the next steps might be. I shared with him everything that I've just told you about the progress we made, and he recommended that we do another 40 therapy sessions. And we started those immediately. Unfortunately, with the second 40, I did not see the physical improvements that I did with the first 40, but I did see what I call mental improvements, because I'm now able to read a book, read the newspaper, read my emails and articles on the internet, all of which I could do before. But the difference is now I can comprehend what I'm reading and retain and recall later on in conversation with others what I've read. And before I couldn't do that. I was just reading words. And most of my doctors have told me that the improvements I've experienced can be directly tied back to, well, actually, my family doctor said this, because I told him on a regular visit, checkup visit, what had transpired, and I said, I can't say with 100% certainty that this is due to hyperbaric, because I need to go to physical therapy and occupational therapy at the same time. He said, you can't, but I can, because this has happened beyond that 12-month window of opportunity. There was no doubt in his mind that hyperbaric played the major role in my improvement. But you know what? I went to my neurologist, and he, even though I told him all of this, and really that was the first time I'd really talked to him. Every time we went for checkups, Allison did all the talking because I wasn't able to. And I would get a glazed over look, and like I was physically there but not mentally there. And that time I told him all of this and the advantages that I had seen, and he said, you do know that there are no documented studies that prove that hyperbaric oxygen therapy will help a stroke patient. But you know what? For me, I don't need documented studies. because I know firsthand what it and a lot of prayer has done for me. And like I said, you cannot put a price tag on getting your quality of life back. I know that I'll probably never be able to go back to work, or maybe even drive a car, but I am so much better than I was, and it's all due to the efforts of the Tennessee Hyperbaric Center, or a big part of it is. And the whole staff here is fantastic, every one of them. They're very helpful, knowledgeable, and will take the time necessary to answer your questions, which I would like to do now. If you have questions, feel free, or if you would rather do those in private or at another time, if something comes up, contact the center here, Victoria, the receptionist. She has our contact information. Feel free to give us a call. Allison and I, either one, will be glad to talk to you and try to answer your questions. So,
thank you, Mr. Phillip.
Right.
I really appreciate it. I really I admire you being able to share every bit of it, and it's hard to even talk in front of just a handful of people. So I appreciate it. Thank you. Allison, please.
I just want to tell you about the first day that we did hyperbaric. Dr. Schmidt had told us that it all works hand in hand: physical therapy, occupational therapy, your diet. And I took all that very seriously. And the very first day that Phillip had hyperbaric, we had to be here ready in the chamber at 8 o'clock, 8 a.m. And that's early for us. That's used to, we could get up and be out of the house by 6 or 7, it's no big deal, but 8 o'clock's very early for us. But we got here and he had his therapy, and then we left directly from there, went to aquatherapy. He had an hour of physical therapy, an hour of occupational therapy. And we got home around, it was 12 o'clock, I guess. By the time he got his bath and ate some lunch, it was like 1, and I thought, oh, he's going to sleep all afternoon. I'll have to wake him up in time for dinner. Well, about 1:30, he went to sleep, and 2 hours later, I hear, Allison! And before that, when he would wake up from his nap, his voice wasn't strong enough to call me, for me to hear it. And our dog she was trying to let Mommy know that Daddy's awake. Well, I was in the living room, and our house is not that big, but when I heard him call my name, I jumped up out of the chair. The dog's barking, it's crazy. And I go in there, and he was just like, what? I said, did you hear yourself call me? And he said, well, I just called you. And I said, but I could hear you. And it was, I thought, oh, we're on to something here. And, there wasn't anything else that dramatic, but it really got my attention. And when I was doing the research for hyperbaric, I went to the internet, which, you find everything there. I found everything from miracle stories, we heard after the first session, to this is a farce. But I found one statement in an article that really caught my attention, and it said, 100 years from now, the medical community is going to look back and say, they had that technology. Why weren't they using it? What's the deal? Why weren't they using it? So that really stuck with me, and I talked to Dr. Schmidt about it. He said, it won't be 100 years, it'll be 10 years. People will be saying, what was the holdback on this? So it's like Phillip said, he didn't make any big promises to us, because you've got 100 stroke patients, you've got 100 stroke patients. They're all different. And if you've got anybody in your life, you know how differently people are affected by stroke. I mean, Phillip's speech is good. It was not strong, but some people, their speech is not. And, some people have some weakness. I mean, he lost feeling on his left side totally. He had nothing. I mean, his head was turned to the right. I mean, they told me I had to live on his left side. But he was like this all the time. It was just like, they told me his brain was telling him that his left side did not exist. So, but hyperbaric helped him overcome all of that. And, the physical therapy he went through, it helped physically. But he was still in the fog. There was so much of the time that he just looked like nobody was home. You could just do this. And that was the first thing that our kids noticed, because they saw him at Christmas a year ago. He started hyperbaric the middle of January, and they saw him at the end of February. Well, the difference to them was like night and day. Like, Dad is back. His sense of humor came back. His dry wit that drives us crazy came back, and you know he's there. It's Dad again. So, you know, I can't say enough good about hyperbaric. I talk people's ears off about it if they're the slightest bit interested. I told Christy, if anybody has any questions, please call me. I mean, I can talk about it all day long. But Phillip has pretty much told you our whole story.
Well, I forgot some, and while you were talking, jogging my memory on some of it. But one of the things was, I failed to tell you is, after that first 40 sessions, I do have feeling from my head to my toe on the left side now. And at the end of the 80th session, Dr. Schmidt did not recommend doing more, but I was ready to go on and do some more. But he told me that he didn't recommend it at that time, but that some patients do experience an erosion in some of their improvements over a period of time. He wanted to see me in January. Well, when January came, I had noticed that the feeling on the left side, I hadn't lost it. I still had it. It just wasn't as sharp or as pronounced as it was. So we did another 28, and after or 24 was it? After about the 7th or 8th session, all that feeling was back, just as sharp as it was.
Tell them back in the flu shot.
Oh yeah. And one day I was joking, hard for you to imagine, I'm sure, with Dr. Schmidt. I told him, I said, "Doctor, you know there are advantages and disadvantages to getting the feeling back, don't you?" He looked at me, that puzzled look. He said, "Okay, what's the disadvantages?" And I said, "Well, a year ago when I went to get my flu shot, the nurse asked me which arm didn't matter, which arm was giving the shot in. I said, put it in the left, because I have a feeling I won't feel it anyway." So she did, and I didn't. We were ready to go, and I had no idea she'd ever given me the shot. This year, when I went to it's actually last fall, November, when we went to get the flu shots, the nurse asked me again which arm, and I knew that I had the feeling back, but I just wanted to test it. I said, put it in the left. So she did, and sure enough, I knew that the feeling was back. I felt that thing.
Well, thank you, Mr. Phillip, for your story. I really appreciate it a whole lot. We have enjoyed you guys being here, and y'all are welcome to come back as often as you want to.